Query and Company.
I'm going to be keeping you company for the next few hours.
You are not going to believe the company.
This company.
You're going to bankrupt your mama's company?
At least I have the radio to keep me company.
On 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
Eddie, let me tell you what happened to me last night. Folks of Indianapolis, let me tell you what happened to me last night. This time of year is always wonky. It's always wonky because your body's still getting used to and adjusting to the fact that you just changed the clock, and at times you got that one clock that you didn't change, and you're like, wait a minute, is it 6 or is it 5? What's going on? And you're getting up in the morning and it's freezing outside, and then by the middle of the day, it's bright and sunny out, and there's optimism about the fact that it's going to be a beautiful weekend, and we just had a gorgeous weekend. All of this stuff's going on. It's all about change and moving forward and looking, coming out of the doldrums of winter and the bright sunshine and sunny days of spring. And I sat there last night, and 3:48 in the morning, I couldn't sleep. I'm sitting there and I'm staring at the ceiling at 3:48 in the morning, and the following brain dropping hits me, which we'll talk about over the course of the show today, periodically. I got to thinking about sports logos, color schemes, helmets. This is a favorite of mine. Designs, because somebody put out a list of the teams in the Sweet 16. And at the bottom of it had the logo for 4 of the schools: Duke, Arizona, Michigan, Nebraska. And they didn't think about the fact that they basically just spelled out "damn" right there in the bottom of the. And I'm thinking, no, you got to be better than that. You got to be smarter than that. So I got to thinking about logos, and I started wondering to myself, and I came up with the Denver Broncos, the Seattle Seahawks, the Indiana Pacers, the Los Angeles/St. Louis Rams. And I had this question that came into my mind at 3:48 in the morning that, truthfully, I was super excited to present to Eddie to start today's show, but he just got up and walked out of the studio, so I'm not sure that he knows where I'm going with that. But, Eddie, would you like to guess where I'm going with this?
I'm going to guess has to do with today being my half birthday.
No. But happy half birthday.
In all honesty, Jake, it is my dad's birthday today, so happy birthday to my dad. I don't know if he's listening or not, but
happy birthday, Dad.
Yeah.
So the Denver Broncos, when I was thinking about logos and I was thinking about color schemes and I was thinking about bright new horizons like today being the spring, and there's a reason where I'm going with this. The Denver Broncos, the Seattle Seahawks, the Los Angeles St. Louis Rams, the Indiana Pacers. When it comes to logos and color schemes, what do all of those, the New England Patriots, if we're playing $100,000 pyramid, these teams, when it comes to logos and color schemes, what do they all have in common, Eddie? The New England Patriots, the Denver Broncos, the Seattle Seahawks, the Indiana Pacers.
They all have blue.
No. The Los Angeles St. Louis Rams. I'm trying to think of other examples that fall into this category. To an extent, you could say Indiana University football, although that's a stretch. Those are the ones that really pop out in my mind here.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Those are all franchises. I began thinking about this last night. Franchises that, okay, here's another one. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You're close. You're along the right track here. These are all franchises and or programs who seemingly underwent a color and logo rebrand that then suddenly turned their fortunes as a franchise. And it's all about in the cleaning or the spring cleaning and turning the page and looking towards brighter futures. And I think we saw it. I started thinking about that with teams, and I thought, you know what? The Indiana Pacers fall into that category. Because the Pacers, and I'm not saying like, I'm using the term love here. I have an unhealthy obsession with the Pacers' original color scheme and original logo. I love everything about it.
And watches.
And watches.
And cologne.
Correct. But if you go into the Pacers gift shop at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, they have a whole display right now of Nike stuff of the original color scheme and logo. I love it. But it was around 92, 93-ish when they introduced the FloJos and the fortunes changed. And it was a new direction. And as I was thinking about that at 3:48 in the morning and I'm staring at the ceiling and I'm thinking to myself, maybe I'm having this awakening about fortunes changing and things going in the right direction because lo and behold, Eddie, last night, for the first time since the All-Star break, and I don't know if you have the Hallelujah music queued up and ready to fire and ready to go. But here we go. The first time since the All-Star break. The Indiana Pacers get a win. They beat the Orlando Magic last night. And before you say to yourself, what are they doing? They're going to screw this up. They're going to screw this up because it has been a dream season. It has been a season. If you thought last year everything bounced the Pacers' way, and it did to a great extent. Some of those bounces and some of that fortune came by way of their own skill and preparation. That goes without saying. Okay? That goes without saying. But they had a lot of things that went their way last year. The ball that bounced high in the air in Madison Square Garden, seemingly as high as the top of the Chrysler Building in New York, and then dropped perfectly through the net. And Halliburton does the choke sign, and the team rushes out on the floor, and then you realize that was a 2, not a 3, and they got to go extra session. No problem. They go, and they win that game. Neesmith catches fire at the right time. The Cleveland series, you know what happened. On and on and on. Good things happened to the Pacers until they didn't. And once the basketball gods determined for the Indiana Pacers that the season was going to vanish as quickly as you had realized what was happening with the Tyrese Halliburton injury and putting in flux and in question mark what that would mean for this year. Just when all of that was sinking into you, you came to the epiphany and the realization that the Pacers had everything going their way this year. Because if you're not going to have Halliburton, sure, you could play your way to 45 wins, which I still will die on the mountaintop of insisting that was going to be the case if not for the other injuries. But the year begins with Toppin getting hurt, and with Nembhard hurt, and with Neesmith banged up. McConnell out. And then you realize, you know what? This is going to be about the brighter future. This is going to be about the rebrand a year from now of what we've seen this year. This is going to be about the bright, sunny future. And this Pacers season is going to be one that is a lot like the weather this time of year. Started out doldrum and cold, and then all of a sudden presented itself by the end of the day as one that has you with a little spring in your step. And that's what happened to an extent last night. What is this guy talking about? The Pacers beat Orlando for their first win since the All-Star break, and they still are tied for the worst record in the NBA at 16 wins. This guy's off his rocker. Not entirely wrong. But when you are looking at the season, and we've gone over this a lot, the Pacers knew at one point that it was all about solidifying and putting themselves in position to be right back where they left off. to come right back to resuming your regularly scheduled programming. You inadvertently hit the remote control and it pauses your television and you can't figure out what's going on. And then you got two choices. One is you unpause it and you sit there and you go through all those commercials. Or you say, wait a minute, I forgot. I'd pause this. I can just fast forward and pick up right where I would have been anyway. And that's seemingly what the Pacers are trying to do. And whether they have the worst record in the NBA, the second worst record in the NBA, the third worst record in the NBA, or the fourth worst record in the NBA, it does not influence the odds of them ending up with a top 4 pick. They are one and the same whichever way they slot. The odds are the same. I believe it's 52% that they will land within the top 4. And they have to be within the top 4 to hold on to their pick. The other way to hold on to their pick would be to play themselves in a position where they were drafting 10th or lower in the draft. They're beyond that now. So you've got to hope for those top 4 and hope that the basketball gods and the basketball karma, who look over the history of this franchise and say this is a franchise that traded the rights potentially to draft within the top 3 in 1984 for Tom Owens. And yes, they would have had the second pick in the 84 draft, and they would not have taken Sam Bowie like the Blazers did. They might have drafted that kid from Carolina. This is the basketball gods that are going to look at it and say, there is a karma to the fact that they drafted Ricky Roby instead of taking the draft rights to Larry Bird. Or lost the coin flip for Ralph Sampson and got a serviceable player in Steve Stepanovich, but Ralph Sampson, he was not. Or lost the frozen envelope for Wayman Tisdale. Or when they finally got a top 10 pick, used it on George McLeod, who had personal tragedy that took place that kind of set off the rails his rookie year. He never got on track. And then at Dallas, he became a pretty good player. Or a franchise that drafted Scott Haskin, who was going to be basically Jeff Foster, but then he had a back injury before he ever suited up in an NBA game, essentially, and it derailed his career. The karma of the basketball gods are going to come back to help Indiana, and they're going to draft in the top 4, we hope. But last night, what happened in Orlando was significant, and it was important. Because there's a guy on the Pacers roster in Pascal Siakam who's been a pro's pro. They traded for Pascal Siakam because he had won a ring in Toronto. He knew how to win. He's a low-post scorer. He can defend. And he brings a mentality they needed and wanted. And yes, I'm one of them that sat here on this radio program and said that I would have had great hesitation of giving him a max contract and extending him. And I was wrong. Absolutely wrong on that. Third time it's happened. Happened once in 1978, one other time, and then with that. I was wrong. And Siakam has been everything that you could ask for and more. And this year has been a tough year for Pascal Siakam. But what have the Pacers done this year? You can look at it and say, if you're driving through Indianapolis right now from Denver to Philadelphia and you happen to just be scanning, and you're like, I wonder what they're talking about in Indy. My Nuggets with the Joker, who should be the MVP of the league. We've won a title. I wonder what they're talking about in Indianapolis with their lowly NBA franchise. And you turn it on, and you're like, you're not going to believe this. I was driving to Philly. I was driving through Indy, and I turned it on. And some guy was talking about the merits of what the Pacers have done this year. The worst record in the league. And this guy's talking about what they've done this year. Let me tell you what they've done this year. What they've done is masterfully. Now, Eddie, you're looking right now. We're on radio, not television. Some of you are watching on YouTube. I appreciate it. Mm-hmm. You're looking right now. Is there anything in my right hand?
No.
Is there anything in my left hand?
No.
You don't see a pail with any liquid in it, right?
Nope.
Good, because I ain't carrying anybody's water. I'm telling you right now, what the Pacers have done this year is masterfully, as we've talked about a lot, gotten reps for players that needed it to develop for tomorrow and finding out what you have and what you don't. And in addition to that, keeping themselves in the mix for a top 4 pick in what was indeed the gap year. But while they've done that, they have occasionally had to remind themselves and the rest of the league of this fact. I have a sweatshirt. One of my favorite sweatshirts. It's a hoodie. It's really good quality, really comfortable, really warm. And I was walking in the gym the other day wearing it, and the girl that was checking me in giggled and said, "I love your sweatshirt. I love what it says." And I said, "Do you know what it says?" And she said, "I do. It says, 'We are still here.'" And I said, "Do you know what that's about?" She said, "Well, no, I think it's a cool saying." I said, "It is a cool saying." And it derives from when the Butler Bulldogs were first making their push into the Sweet 16, and Joel Cornette, after they had defeated, and I believe it was the win over Louisville, and he said afterwards, "You know, nobody talks about us. Nobody knew this game was being played. Nobody cares. But in the end, we went out and won that game, and nobody might be talking about us, but we are still in pursuit of a national championship, and everybody can write us off, but we are still here." And that slogan, of course, went on the sweatshirts with the proceeds going towards heart health awareness because Joel Cornette passing of a heart attack, and a great dude. But that slogan, "We are still here," the Indiana Pacers have used it a few times this year. They used it when they went to Oklahoma City and they beat the Thunder. We have the worst record of the league. We could have used this win in Game 2 or Game 7. But you aren't talking about us. Nobody cares, but we are still here. They went into New York, where they had to beat the Knicks last year in Game 1, and then came back and eliminated the Knicks and ended their season in front of a raucous crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse. And they went into that game in a season where they've only mustered to this point 16 wins and got their first one against, or after, I should say, the All-Star break. And they did it in Orlando last night. But when they went into New York and beat the Knicks, they said to them, all of those things in the year that we're having, but we are still here. And last night, they said it one more time. Because what you saw was a team with Pascal Siakam, who has been the professional, who has been the leader and the veteran, and the guy that got everybody together in Orlando, mind you. When he was acquired by Indiana and went through the first season, and what did he do a year ago that helped springboard the Pacers eventually into the NBA Finals? Pascal Siakam had the entire roster to his house and his complex, essentially, to bond, to play basketball together, to work out, to get in shape at his home near Orlando. And last night, they perhaps set the tone, set the springboard again for next season by getting a win in Orlando with Pascal Siakam making defensive plays down the stretch in the game-winning block to win the game. And then afterwards, on the FanDuel Sports Television Network with Jeremiah Johnson, Pascal Siakam talked about and was asked about what that means to get that block, to win that game, and to know all of the things that they've been through this year, and yet still, when it matters, be able to dig down and get themselves a win to remind themselves and remind the rest of the NBA, we are still here.
We got to get some wins, man. We got to keep building as a team. It's been tough. It's been a tough year for us, man. And it shows your character. You know, it's going to test you, but that's life. So we're not going to back down. We're going to keep fighting for each other, keep working. And we're just hopeful that, you know, good things going to happen from us just continue to work and not giving up.
And later he went on to say,
yeah, I think it's just continue to focus on the basics. I think it's like I said, I'm gonna keep saying it's been a hard year for us. So trying not to lose identity, who we are, Pacer basketball. Some of the things that I fell in love, coming here and playing for the Pacers, we just want to keep that. Like, I think it's really it's something special. So I know it's hard, and I think, the fans have been so awesome with us, sticking with us, and I just think that, at the end it's going to be a reward. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I just know that, with the fight and continue to work and just continue to battle, we're going to get out of it.
Good things are going to reward. I truly believe that. I really do. Because when it's mattered most, the Pacers have been able to show that they're still there. And that resolve and that ability to win games in the end is still there within them. Because of guys like Siakam. And then obviously you have other players. When Halliburton comes back, yes, it's going to take an acclimation period with Zubats. Yes, it's going to take an acclimation period with Zubats and figuring out what it's like when Toppin comes flying through the lane. Yes, it's going to take time to get used to Jarris Walker's new role of where and when he can play good minutes for you. Yes, it's going to be an acclimation period with whoever they draft, assuming it's within the top 4 and how they work out. But last night I thought was significant. Yeah, it's win number 16. Great. Keep driving to Philly on your way from Denver and tuning in as you're driving on I-70 and mock the guy you heard talking about the fact that it was a significant win for the Pacers to get a win that gives them Sweet 16. But it's symbolic. It's symbolic because of what Pascal Siakam plus Orlando mean towards that team and the gelling together and the fact that they're still here. You mentioned, Eddie, that it is your father's birthday.
I did, yes.
Here's one to me that seems surreal. I'm not going to say it makes me feel old because even though I joke about my age on this program, I don't feel old. I don't. I feel probably like I'm in my mid-30s, and I know I'm not. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. But it is strange to me, and this is a phenomenon that will happen to you, Eddie, as you get older, or any of you. It is a weird thing, and I think to some extent it starts to complicate sports fandom when you realize that you are cheering for and pulling for and emotionally invested in people that are far younger than you. Or when you see players that are retiring and you're like, man, I remember when they were in high school. And then you realize even more so, what becomes more surreal is when players retire and you realize that you are in the same point in life as you were when their career began. It is hard for me to believe. And I'm going to guess it's going to be hard for people who hear me say this to grasp. That Peyton Manning today turns 50 years old. I don't think of Peyton Manning as a 50-year-old guy. But happy birthday to Peyton Manning, who turns 50 today. But I kind of always think of Peyton Manning as being like 38 years old. I mean, yes, I covered his entire career in Indianapolis, from the time that he arrived to the press conference announcing that he was retiring, or at least leaving the Colts, and actually then the press conference for his retirement press conference. But happy 50th birthday to Peyton Manning. And we're a different city perhaps than when Peyton Manning arrived. A lot of that is, of course, because of Peyton Manning. And sports are different than when Peyton Manning arrived in Indianapolis. Peyton Manning, even though the Colts didn't undergo a color and logo rebranding, Peyton Manning came to Indianapolis and arrived here as a chilly gray mid-March morning. And by the time he left, it was late March, beautiful, birds are singing, leaves are on the trees, 65, 70 degrees and sunny, like we see this time of year. And the brighter horizons were introduced because of Peyton Manning. But it is surreal to me to think that he is 50. But sports is an ongoing cycle. The seasons continue, just as they had to for the Pacers this year, even when your star player is down, and you find the silver lining in them. But there's an evolution that goes on with sport, including one thing that happened today in college basketball. And does it impact or relate to the future and the bright, sunny one for the Indiana Pacers? It could. But it represents the wind of change in college basketball, and something that 2 years ago was possible but hard to grasp, and 10 years ago was absolutely impossible. It happened today, and could it be coming to Indianapolis? I'll explain what I'm talking about. Stephen Holder, also NFL owners meeting on the horizon. He's going to join us 35 minutes from now. Tuesday edition, Query & Company here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Let's take a look at the Marion Giants. Their key players, obviously you start with Zach Randolph.
Everybody's talking about Zach Randolph headed for Michigan State next year. He'll wear number 50. He's 6'9". He averages 24 points a game.
Now backing down inside. Oh, what a beautiful move. And he got the bucket, did Zach Randolph. Randolph, field goal percentage, most of them from that range, 65%.
And, of course, Zach Randolph with lightning-quick feet, as Jerry Baker and Dave Nicholson were able to witness in that 62-56 win over Bloomington North for the 2004A state championship. The Giants finishing at 28-1. Of course, Zach Randolph in that game going up against Jared Jeffries, who would win Mr. Basketball. Jeffries would take Indiana to the Final Four. Zach Randolph would play a year at Michigan State before a prolific and lucrative NBA career, notably with the Memphis Grizzlies, who, by the way, Tony Allen, Mark Gasol, and Zach Randolph, the only three players with their jerseys in the rafters at a Memphis Grizzlies game. Derek Schultz actually shared with me that tidbit. He went to see the Grizzlies last week and was sharing that with me. The 2001 19th overall selection, Zach Randolph, into the NBA. You can see the Zach Randolph or the Jared Jeffries of tomorrow that we might be talking about years from now and say, I saw them play in a state title game, because the state finals are upon us this weekend. 10:30 in the morning on Saturday, it is Bar Reeve and Triton for the 1A title game. 2A, Park Heritage and Westview. In 3A, 6 o'clock, it is Cathedral from right here in town against New Haven. And then in 4A at 8:15, Luke Ertl and Mountain Vernon taking on Crown Point, all at Gamebridge Fieldhouse. Your chance to see high school athletics and student athletes competing for their school, all, of course, and their community for a lot less than what you're going to pay when they get to the college or NBA ranks. Ticketing information, scheduling information, ihsaa.org.
Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
I'm going to get to the thing that happened in college basketball today in just a second, but I want to begin with a show note, a station note, somewhat a personal note. Many of you who listen to this show, notably this station, because, truth be told, a much closer friend to JMV and friend of that show, as well as the JMV Takeover, J-Law, who has been a friend of this radio station and a great supporter. He shows up at any of the events that we have, like, for example, the golf outing, which is coming up April 30th at the Legends Golf Club. You can be there and talk to J-Law, see him, and the rest of all of you cast of characters that we look forward to seeing for that. And the J-Law is a diehard IU fan. He was with John down at the national championship game down in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a ton of respect for this. He has J-Law undergone and been very open about the fact that he is undergoing treatment for cancer, and has been very open about that in chronicling his journey for really the last couple of years. That journey has led him to a surgery today, and I believe, I don't want to be off base, I believe, if I recall correctly, it's a prostate cancer, but that's really neither here nor there. The reality is that he has had a health challenge for the last year or so. And I realize that very few of you that can hear my voice right now may personally know him. He's probably more just representative of what so many of us have come across, whether it be individually or someone we know or a colleague, in the journey with cancer. But he has been so transparent and so encouraging to others about his health. And we talked to him when he was down with John in Florida for the Indiana National Championship game and about his journey that is leading him to a surgery today that he hopes allows him to be cancer-free and takes the cancer out of him. Of course, we won't know, nor will he for some time, whether that is the case. And it's very easy to say, and this is just my opinion, but it's very easy to say when you hear the song, I Fought the Law and the Law Won, to say cancer fought the law and J-Law is going to win. You got this. Cancer picked the wrong person. We hear all of those things, right? I think sometimes, and I'm not saying this is correct. It's my own personal thought. But I know that when I went through a health scare, and in no way, shape, or form am I comparing what I went through to what J-Law is going through, because my deal was a couple of months probably in the recovery, psychologically speaking at least. And when you're faced with your own mortality in that regard, I've always been hesitant to say, like, you got this. Kick it in the tail. Kick it in the teeth. It picked the wrong person. Because that's not my battle to fight, and it's not my journey. I think my personal opinion would be that sometimes the best way to support people in that situation is to say, do what's best for you. Do it in the time and the fashion and with the vigor that works for you. And don't feel like, if this means that this is just another hurdle and there are going to be more hurdles ahead, that you're letting anybody down or that you're losing that battle, because you're not. The battle's defined by the spirit with which you go into it, not necessarily the fashion in which it ends or is fought. And so I never want people to feel like there's a pressure of an expectation of the way they go about it. So if you're listening to my voice right now and you are on a similar path, a similar journey, you can look to examples like J-Law and the strength that he's shown in being so transparent in what I'm sure is a terrifying situation, and simply know that there is a network of people that are willing to do what they can to help you out should you need it, and to be supportive, of course, but at the same time, who are going to pull for, love you, and hope the best for you, regardless of whichever pace your body chooses to go through it. And so go at the pace that's best for you. And I absolutely hope, and like so many, pray for the best for J-Law in his recovery, and also let him know that if his recovery is extended longer than what he thinks, that those exact sentiments simply continue on. And that's that. And simply hope the best for him and look forward to seeing him at the golf outing coming up on April 30th. News came out earlier today. This is something I never thought I'd see, although I'm not surprised today. Darius Acuff, who has really been, NCAA tournaments, sometimes that's what makes a star, oftentimes. There are those players that March Madness in one shining moment or one shining game puts them on the map, and sometimes it's short-lived. The point guard for St. Peter with the mustache that ended up getting a deal with, I think,
Doug Eddert,
like BW3 or something.
Yep.
Kevin Pittsnoggle from West Virginia. Now he's like a high school coach or something, which is cool. It's not like he turned into an NBA star. Then there are those players that have been really solid, good players over the course of the year. And if you follow basketball or if you follow that team, you're well aware of how good they are. And then in the NCAA tournament, it all comes together. Glenn Rice comes to mind. Glenn Rice was a great player at Michigan. Glenn Rice still, to this day, holds the record for most points in an NCAA tournament run. And that 89 season, Glenn Rice, it was like good night. Miles Simon comes to mind at Arizona here in the RCA Dome. Scotty Thurman for Arkansas. There have been a lot of them, and sometimes that means NBA greatness, and sometimes it doesn't. And in the case of Darius Acuff, he's been a really solid player at Arkansas, and everybody knew that he was a top 5, top 10 level draft prospect. And I think now you could literally say, and a little of it's out of sight, out of mind, because Caleb Wilson at North Carolina, due to the injury, you kind of forget about him, but I think he's right there in that top 4 as well. But now it's a top 5, and 4 and 5, 3, 4 and 5, maybe it's interchangeable there. Maybe there's some movement floating around. But Acuff today, it's announced, has a shoe deal already with Reebok. So a college player is inking an individual shoe deal. Now, Braden Smith was wearing, did you see what Braden Smith was wearing on Sunday?
No.
I believe they're John Morant's shoes, right? They have they almost look like they are like sequin slippers. I think they're John Morant, but Nike nonetheless, Purdue, a Nike school. And I heard several people that were like, what in the world does he have on his feet? And I'm like, well, first off, you got to keep in mind, listen, when I was a senior in high school, Mike Byron shaved an IU logo into his head. You do stupid stuff, right? Chris Farkas put Bama in his head. And I probably would have done the same if I would have been with him that day. I got a Jayhawk earring, Eddie, when I was 19. I literally had a Jayhawk pierced into my ear my senior year spring break, and that lasted for a week before I knew I had to come home because my dad mentioned Vincent Van Gogh, and I'm like, all right, we're good. But either way, you do dumb stuff when you're younger, and these guys are not younger. I get it. They're young men at this point. But the target demo of wearing like flashy shoes or something, they're trying to to catch the eye, not of the 45-year-old guy, but rather of the kid in high school that's going to look up to that and think it's cool. And I assumed that Braden Smith wearing those shoes that were Nike, I don't know if it was individualized money for Braden Smith, but certainly part of the licensing agreement with Purdue. But now that players, this is going to be, you watch, this is going to be another watershed moment. Because players now, if you think this is significant, just strictly because, hey, this is cool and this is a guy that's getting his contract because he's about to go into the NBA, and could he be one that is a Pacer possibility?
It is significant, Jake, in this regard, because he's the first NCAA men's athlete to receive a shoe deal from one of the major U.S. brands while still in college.
Correct. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
And so this is why there is another hook to this. One of my favorite things about history. I love history. Been to probably 15 different presidential libraries, burial sites, homes. Love history. And one of the things I love about history is oftentimes you can look back on it and say, there was the precipice for the today. And there is historical significance towards this thing and how it could impact not just the Pacers if he's going to become a Pacer, and that means that Reebok is what he's wearing, and he's already got a shoe deal and whatever else, and maybe that impacts what he's going to do in terms of his NBA, whatever. But historical precedent says this could be significant to Indiana and Purdue and Butler and Indiana State. Darius Acla of Arkansas could have significance towards the building of those programs. And history tells us that. And I'll explain next. Hey there, Jake Query for Game Day Men's Health. Avon, Fishers, Carmel, Greenwood locations for Game Day Men's Health. Of course, you can always find them online and get an explanation of all of their benefits and the things that they do to get you back in the game at GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Jake, what are you talking about, get back in the game? I'll tell you what I'm talking about. If you've got maybe just that midday nap that you're needed, your energy's low, you're working out and you're feeling the aches and pains you didn't feel before, guess what? There are solutions out there, and there's help that can be found from Game Day Men's Health. I'm talking about if your testosterone is low. And believe me, it's very efficient. I went in there extremely professional in getting the blood draw to find out where your testosterone is, and maybe testosterone therapy is the answer for you, and just getting that pickup, if you will, throughout the course of the day. Or the peptide therapies. Peptide therapy is fabulous in terms of just getting extra energy after a workout. Also helps in burning that fat around the abdomen area. Peptide therapy's outstanding. That's what I'm doing. And now you can do those from an oral standpoint, which is excellent from Game Day Men's Health. Also, weight loss injections. Anything to help you get back in the game, guys. Get that young feeling again. Get that extra pep in your step and get back in the game. Game Day Men's Health is there for you. Find all the different therapies available. Set up a consultation time and an appointment to go in. You can work with their PCP as well if that's what's best for you. GameDayMen'sHealth.com is the website. That's GameDayMen'sHealth.com.
is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You just heard John talking about it, Sweet 16. Take a look at it right now. I'm going to name the school, Eddie, and I'm not saying that I'm going to lean on you here, right? Because I think most of these we can probably do. Some of them we might be tripped up a little bit, okay? I'm going to mention the school, and I want you to tell me the shoe they wear. You ready?
Oh, boy. Okay.
Duke.
Nike?
Correct. Kansas. Oh, no, Kansas is out. Connecticut.
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure Connecticut's Nike as well. Michigan State.
Nike?
Arizona.
Nike?
Purdue.
Nike?
Michigan.
Jordan?
Correct. Houston. Houston's
Adidas?
Houston might be Adidas. Look up Houston. Most of these you know, though, right? Most of them, it's like you just automatically know it's been branded that way, right? That you're aware of which school or which shoe they align. Iowa State may be a...
Houston is Jordan.
Okay, what is Iowa State? Are there any Adidas left?
I don't know.
Here's why I bring it all up. Right there, though, goes to show that...
Iowa State is Nike.
Okay. So Nike's got a pretty good stranglehold here on the Sweet 16. But let's go back to history. I was a terrible college student, especially early in my college career. I went away to the University of Kansas, and I was a diehard IU fan growing up. I mean, I loved IU, the campus, the union, breaking away.
Is Adidas.
St. John's is? Okay.
Yes.
And I loved everything about IU. But I was a slacker student, and so going to IU was not academically really a reality for me. So I went to Kansas. It was like IU, a little more welcoming to the slacker student. And I also liked the fact that it was a big state university with a big-time basketball program. So it was IU, but not IU.
Nebraska, also Adidas.
That surprised me about Nebraska. So I go away to KU, and immediately I'm homesick, and it just did not go well. Lived in a fraternity. Eventually was like, look, enough of this. I moved into a dorm, and my day essentially consisted of watching like Family Feud and Saved by the Bell, and then going and skulking around the mail area to see if the mail showed up before I found out what was for lunch or dinner that night in the dorms. And one day I was hanging around in the mailroom, and two guys from the dorms that were diehard KU fans, grew up in Kansas, diehard Rock Chalk Jayhawk. And they were devastated. Devastated because they couldn't believe the news that the number one point guard in America, who had previously committed to Kansas, that rumor was that that player was now backing out of his commitment and going instead to California. And literally, and he was from Alameda, California. And everybody's like, well, he's from Alameda, California. Of course he'd go to Cal. Berkeley's right on the other side of the bay. And then everyone stopped and said, repeat that again? Because word was that this point guard had backed out of his commitment to Kansas to go to Cal because he liked the way the Nike shoes felt on his feet versus what Kansas was wearing at the time, which was either Converse or Adidas. Might have been Converse. And we're like, wait a minute. You're telling me that a guy just chose his college basketball program based on the shoes they wear? And we thought it was based on comfort. I like the pumps better. Well, what Jason Kidd was telling us was an introduction to where college basketball was going. Because for a while there, the way it worked was this. That was the beginning of it. Then you get into like the World Wide West and the shoe involvement with different programs, and it was real simple what was happening. Shoe representatives would go to these AAU tournaments, and they would go to John Doe, who's coaching the, give me a city off the top of your head in the United States, Eddie Boom, go.
Tucson.
So John Doe is the coach of the Tucson
Tacos.
Thank you. The Tucson Tacos. That's the AAU team. That's the team in Tucson. And John Doe's they're 14-year-olds. And he's coaching it because he knows that there's one guy on the team that might someday make it to the NBA. And I'll be darned, John Doe then will be able to be on a 30 for 30 and be talked about how he was the coach that discovered that player. So John Doe's coaching that team. And this kid on the Tucson Tacos is a bright rising star. So one of the shoe companies comes to the Tucson Tacos to John Doe and says, listen, you got a really nice team here, and you're playing, but we notice, there's a tournament in El Paso you're going to want to go to. There's a really big tournament coming up in Bakersfield. That costs money to travel. We're willing to sponsor you. So we're going to give you a check for $50,000 to sponsor the Tucson Tacos to make it possible for you to play in a couple of these tournaments and come talk to us next year. And the Tucson Tacos go and do it, and this player really blossoms, and this happens 2 or 3 years in a row. And then the shoe company goes to John Doe after year 3, now that the players are 17, and says, hey, we've had a heck of a time sponsoring the Tucson Tacos. And we just figured it out. We crunched the numbers here. We've given you $200,000 in sponsorship money over the last 4 years. And, we know as well as you do, it really only cost you $15,000 to travel for those games. So we're not interested in where that $185,000 went. We're not overly concerned about it. But that player you've got that you've had since 14, we're going to give you a list of the 12 schools that we sponsor as a shoe company, and we're going to assume that player is going to pick amongst those 12 schools, right? Because we don't want to have to come asking where that $185,000. We're not worried about that. But do me a favor, would you, and just take a long, hard look at these schools and maybe talk to the player. That's how it went for years. Now we've cut out all the middlemen.
Whatever happened to that Adidas investigation of like wire transferring to players to go to certain schools? Whatever happened to that?
They redacted most of the files.
Because wasn't Kansas and Bill Self and part of that?
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that what got Sean Miller fired at Arizona?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wiretapping's the whole deal.
Yeah.
Well, but now we've gone we've cut out the middleman. So if Darius Acuff is already getting a shoe deal while at Arkansas, lo and behold, we just blew the lid off the whole thing. And now, if you think Indiana is using NIL money to go out and build a roster, or Purdue with Nike and Indiana with Adidas and Michigan with Jordan Brand and whatever else, those schools now, now you really know how you're getting guys. We got a point guard we want to come here. It's not because the shoe fits, it's because the check clears. And you just cut out all those middlemen. And now it is literally players are basically, it's going to be all about which shoe company is it's always kind of been that way. And history tells us it's always been that way. But now it's just a lot more clear. And you can hear it a lot louder. Stephen Holder next.
Barry and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
The NFL owners' meetings are on the horizon. And what I know about that is this. It's the one time each year that the mothership, the four-letter network, ponies up the cash of NIL money to send Stephen Holder to go stay in five-star exotic resorts. Golf all over the place, couple of massages in the afternoon, probably a spa, cucumbers over the eyes when it's bedtime, you name it. They got all that going on, and it's all within close proximity of where the owners are staying. So it's very important for Stephen to be able to put that on the expense report. And he joins us now on the Java House Cold Brew Coffee guest line. Stephen, that's pretty much how it works at the NFL owners meetings, right?
Well, listen, you have not lived until you have stayed at the downtown Courtyard Marriott in Phoenix, okay? Let me tell you. Okay,
literally.
It is when you talk about luxury. Okay, you're talking Courtyard Marriott. And by the way, in all seriousness, because so Phoenix and Arizona generally this time of year is the epicenter of everything, right? Spring training, although I guess that's wrapping up. But sometimes you have this constellation of like spring training, spring break, golf, obviously. And it ends up being the place where everybody in the country is going to. So your flight ends up costing like $1,000, and the hotels are like $450 a night. It's incredible. It's insane. So my advice to you is, please go to Phoenix. It's great, but don't go during spring break.
Yeah, I would imagine. Now, the other thing, too, is now Indianapolis, I don't think it's so bad. But coming back from Phoenix, just so you know, like if your flight's at 6, you got to get to the airport at 10:30 a.m., right?
Well, I'm sure it's going to be something ridiculous. Yeah, I'm bracing for that. I've heard good things, and listeners can correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't flown in a few weeks, so I haven't had to deal with this yet. But it sounds like Indy is not all that bad.
Correct.
So
correct.
On that.
I was here. I was there like a week ago, and it was okay. For that matter, DFW wasn't bad either. But anyway, let's get to the owners' meeting, Stephen.
Okay.
And I want to talk some college basketball with you too. But for the owners' meeting, what exactly does take place? I know there are a couple of these over the course of the year. So the important issues to be discussed will be what?
So it's funny. This year, it's really not. It's not one of those years where there's like a single burning topic to be discussed. Last couple of years, I guess, the tush push has been the dominant storyline, where there's just a lot of fighting over that. Apparently, they have given up on, at least for now, dealing with that. It doesn't sound as though it's going to be a topic of discussion. So a lot of it is going to be minor rules changes, if any, and mostly, because this is the most important thing, mostly money. Okay, because that's what the owners love to talk about, and they're very good at making money. So that's really what a lot of this is about. Is they deal with their business topics. Oftentimes, though, you do have rules proposals that become very newsworthy. I just don't think we have a lot of those this year. It just is a weird year where there's just not a burning topic. So for the Colts fans who are following this, I think what you want out of the next week is to hear from the team leadership, and you will.
Stephen, with that, and I want to be careful here because I'm not in any way, shape, or form, and I know this is shocking when I say it this way, I'm not trying to beat a dead horse here, okay? But here is a subject matter that I'm fascinated by because I don't know that we've gotten a lot of outward clarity on it. When you talk about money and you talk about ownership, whenever you have a change of ownership at the NFL level or the NBA, Major League Baseball, whatever it may be, you're talking about money that is in the stratosphere that you and I and the average person can't grasp. But when you look at all of the assets that Jim Irsay had that have been sold, and then until I hear otherwise, I'm always going to be under the assumption, at no fault of theirs, that there are tax burdens for Jim Irsay's three daughters that are still very challenging and calculated to try to work and navigate through, and that leads me to wonder how it all gets taken care of. Now, I want you to tell me if I'm being my typical neurotic self and barking up a tree that has absolutely no leaves left on it.
Well, it's not like you to ask questions at all. I mean, I'm shocked.
That's right.
So, look, I think so. A couple things. Number one, yes, I am not. Shockingly, I am not a CPA because I am terrible at math. I would completely screw you, and you would be paying the IRS for the next 10 years if I did your taxes. So that's the first thing. So I'm not qualified to talk about taxes. However, here's what I'd say. Yeah, perfectly reasonable to assume that there are estate issues that they have to deal with. On the other hand, the thing that I want to impress upon people is that the NFL is extremely detailed about this. You must have on file in the NFL offices, whether your owner is 20 years old or 80 years old, there is a requirement that you have a succession plan on file, and it is extremely detailed. They want to know all of the ramifications. That was, you would assume, and not even assume, I know, the Colts had that resolved with the NFL many, many years ago, even before Jim Irsay's health really took a turn for the worse in recent years. So it's a requirement, right? So that was done. And the other thing I would say is that the good news for NFL owners is that you have one of the most valuable assets in the world, probably, right? In terms of its value and what the investment is and what the value is and the profit and all that, right? These are multi-billion-dollar assets.
Right.
Well, as such, it is very easy. If you need money, it is very easy to make money because all you have to do is sell minority shares. And I have no indication, zero indication the Colts are doing this. I'm just telling you, you can look across the NFL and you will see numerous teams have done this. You could raise $200, $300, $400 million with the blink of an eye and just sell minority shares and keep control of your team. So if we start to see that, that's when I think we have to wonder what their financial state is.
So here's my question, Stephen. And again, this is going to show a combination of my naivete towards the situation and my overall mathematical challenges, okay? I'm sure, and someone who, this may be more of a tax attorney question, okay? But if you have...
Well, I'm your guy.
Okay, that's right. That's right. That Miami education, right? Which is a good one.
Oh, yeah.
If you have the three daughters and they have equal ownership, is that to say that they each own 33 1/3% of the franchise?
That is a great question, and I honestly do not know the answer. It's one of those like technical things we never really got.
Here's why I ask it that way. If they each
presume, though, yes.
Okay, so in other words, what I'm getting at is this. Let's just say, for the sake of discussion, let's say that the Irsay daughters say, look, we are unlike the Daniel Snyder was, or Bob Kraft, or other entities, or Jerry Jones that had other business empires that gave us a source of revenue beyond our NFL team. We're unlike that. Our source of revenue is our NFL team. So if in order to pay some sort of a tax lien, we want to sell, let's just say, for example, 49% of the franchise. And that's an astronomical number, but for the sake of the discussion here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Does that then mean that whoever has the 49% owner, one guy comes along or gal and buys 49% of the Indianapolis Colts? Are they now the majority owner because they own 49% and the three daughters' ownership now is 17% each? Or do the three daughters collectively go into something that's at 51%?
That is a great question. I do not know the answer. It's not something I considered. I would imagine that, in fact, I know they employ a lot of lawyers, and no decision like that would be made
Understood.
without them understanding the ramifications. I will tell you this: there is every intention, as far as I can tell, as far as I know, and from everything I've ever been told, for whatever that's worth, there is a clear intention that the team will stay in the family even beyond this generation.
I do believe that intention,
change,
yes.
Right? That could change, but I'm just telling you, I know that that's the intent. So as such, I would imagine, and I would have to assume that things were structured in a way to ensure that happened. There are very many clever things you can do from a tax perspective, from a legal perspective, to protect yourself. And I know Jim Irsay had lawyers that he employed, in fact, in some cases for many decades, the same lawyers, and they're very good at their jobs.
Okay. So with all of that said, and I will admit this is something that I will probably revisit until we have some sort of absolute certainty on it from time to time,
sure.
Because I find it fascinating. Maybe I'm the only one that does. But with all of that said, it is I'm not going to say belief, but I can't rule out the possible theory, Stephen, as we head into the NFL owners meeting. Stephen Holder, my guest, Java House Cold Brew Coffee guest line. He is on ESPN, of course, and at ESPN.com. As we go into this and we look at what the Colts did in the offseason, and yes, they took care of their own. That's always been a Chris Ballard priority. But they haven't necessarily, revamped the roster. Is it possible that Chris Ballard kind of got an extra year there because Carly Ursay-Gordon and her two sisters essentially said it themselves, this is the year where we have to make sure that we have the business aspect of all loose ends tied up. And then next year, we'll start really starting to inventory the football aspect of it.
So if you mean from a financial perspective, to some degree, is that kind of what you're
correct.
At there?
In other words, hey,
just football. Okay,
year one, we're worrying about the business aspect of it and making sure that everything's tied up with that. Then we'll start worrying about wins and losses.
Well, I would say this. They definitely had a lot on their plates for the past year, right? I mean, obviously, okay, obviously. They're just adapting to life without their father. Forget about the Colts, right? I mean, the family dealing with that and the fallout, which is massive, of course, right? So that we know. Whether that had any influence on football decisions, I'm skeptical of that, and here's why. Because I think at the end of the day, there was nothing. I don't think money really precludes them from. I don't think money's a big factor in whether you make a change at head coach or GM. And here's why. For example, and I'm not saying you're suggesting this, but I'm just giving people my take on this. If you are going to make a change in the front office and coach, yes, that will cost you multiple millions of dollars. I would argue on the other side, you just gave Daniel Jones $44 freaking million. Who cares, right? So they get a check every year from the NFL. Guaranteed, they get a check for like $400 million. And that's before they even sell one ad in Lucas Oil Stadium or, one business relationship is made, right? I mean, that's excluding all the local revenue. So they're making an untold number of millions of dollars in revenue every single year. I would argue that firing a head coach and GM is like toilet paper. I'm not kidding you. It doesn't mean anything financially.
The difference being toilet paper, you can always just get at your next hotel stop, right? I guess you can with a coach and a GM too. Have you ever done that? Do you ever? Let me ask you. Have you ever, Stephen? Be honest. Now you've already outed where it is that you stay, so I don't want those people coming after you. But have you ever just gone ahead and considered that the roll of toilet paper that's in the room is part of the room cost, and so therefore you might as well take it home?
Well, look, I will say this, and this is going to make me sound like an East Coast elite here, but I'm very particular about toilet paper, and so I figure, look, I work hard. Okay. So like, if I'm gonna splurge on anything, I'm splurging on toilet paper. I've earned that. So my point is I have a very high standard. And generally speaking, the hotel toilet paper is just kind of average.
Now, I'm not going to lie to you. If anybody was ever to be like a weekend guest at my place, they might notice that they've got their pick of 8 different towels with different logos on it that look relatively familiar from accommodation places of their past. That's all I'm going to say.
So, all right, I'm glad you went there. Because my wife, we went to a very nice resort in Florida one time, and this woman insisted, and you've met her, she insisted, we're taking these towels home. I was like, do that.
Did they write that into the room cost, do you think?
I don't know. I don't know.
Did you do it, though? Did you take the towels?
They're in my linen closet now.
Of course.
They're amazing.
Yeah, of course, right? Now, when Jordan retired from the Bulls.
Towels, but they're like white, like bathroom towels, but they're like the size of beach towels, and the thickness is amazing. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I have never purchased a towel comparable.
When Jordan retired from the Bulls for the final time, Dave First and I went up to Chicago to cover it for Channel 6 on a whim, really, and we got there late at night, and they put us up in a really nice hotel, and we got back, and like 3 days later, the guy from, one of the guy that crunches the numbers, the bean counter at Channel 6 comes in and says, hey, which one of you guys had the $12 bag of M&Ms, and which one of you actually grabbed the robe? And First, I kid you not, Dave First did not know that the robe was not complimentary. We had to send the robe back. It was like $300.
Oh, my God.
He's like, I thought the robe came with a room. They're like, no. This was our first venture into fine, staying in places like that. But anyway.
Wow.
All right. Lastly, Stephen, here we go.
Hey, watch out for
NCAA.
those Michigan Avenue hotels, man,
I'll tell you, it was a nice place because they sent us up last minute. They literally sent a press conference. I will tell you this. They sent an email that day that said, like, there's a press conference tomorrow at 11 a.m. for Michael Jordan, like, media wishing to attend need to be at the United Center by like 9 a.m. And they sent the press conference release at like 8 o'clock at night. So at the last minute, we're like, we're going to go cover it. So they put us up in a hotel, the only room they could find, which was a nice one. Now, I shouldn't admit this, Stephen. I shouldn't admit this, but I will admit it here, okay? And I want you to tell me if you find this to be mischievous or genius, okay? I think the statute of limitations is up on this. And besides, you're a hotel towel thief, so what does it matter? So we get to the United Center. I was only
an accomplice, okay?
That's right. That's true. So we get to the United Center at like 8 in the morning for the Jordan press conference. We're the first 2 people in this line of, they said like the first 200 media members, and that's it. So there's this line. Dave and I walk in. We're the first 2 there because we got there like very early in the morning. We walk in. The guy says, here's your press credential. If you go around the corner, there are boxes with press releases. So I go around the corner. There's a press release, beautiful Bulls stationery embossed, and it says the Michael Jordan press release, and it's got all the information about Jordan's retirement. And it's got, the Bulls letterhead. It's super nice stationery. I look around. We're the first 2 people in there. I took 2 of the press releases. I grabbed the box. I walked around to a dumpster and threw them away. So I'm fairly convinced that I have the only 2 press releases of Michael Jordan's retirement from the Chicago Bulls. Now, is this mischievous or genius?
That's amazing. That is devious as hell, but I respect it.
I was young, right? I would not do that today.
Right.
I would not do that today. But I was like 25 years old. I didn't know. It's almost like, I knew better, I guess. But you know what I mean? Would never do that today.
Take responsibility. I don't take responsibility for anything I did before the age of 30.
That's
fair. How I see life.
I probably shouldn't admit that on the radio, but I do have them framed in my house. Okay, Final Four. Who you got?
Oh man. This is a bad question to ask me because I've been a bad college basketball fan this year, but I don't know. I don't look. I'm not saying this because I'm bitter, but I don't think Purdue gets there. Sorry. Duke should be there, but I'm gonna go with Duke, but they're giving me reason for pause. Who else we got here? Is Arizona gonna make it, you think? I don't know.
Arizona would have to get Arizona's in Purdue's region, so if you think Purdue's not going to make it, then you must think Arizona's going to.
I'm bringing up my bracket here. Excuse me. I mean, UConn looks great, and then what's the other? I'm looking at. I'm getting the right.
Don't sleep on Florida, or excuse me, not Florida. Don't sleep on Houston. Florida's already gotten beat. Don't sleep on Houston.
Right. No, I like that. I'm trying to make sure I got the right bracket, the right regions and all that. You know, I don't want to give like.
So Michigan, you like Michigan?
Feasible. I like them. Yeah, I like them. I mean, you know, they're big. They've got some skill. So, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I'm not the guy to ask on this, but yeah, I would say UConn. No, UConn is a team I don't want to play.
Nobody cares about your bracket, but I'm going to tell you mine because it's up on 1075thefan.com in our bracket challenge. I had UConn, Houston, Purdue, and Michigan. So I'm still in play, baby. Still in play. Okay. And I'm looking for
that's saying something. 2 weeks in. I mean, a full week in.
Arkansas is going to shock Arizona. Ooh, pig suey. There's my pick for you. All right, owners' meetings get underway when, Stephen?
Sunday. So we'll be out there. I'll be out there Saturday night, and then we'll be, buzzing around, bothering people on Sunday, and Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, for the most part. So hoping to hear from all the Colts brass, and see what they have to say, and what has happened, and what is to come in the next weeks and months.
All right, we will look for the coverage of it. ESPN.com. A pleasure as always, Stephen.
All right, you got it.
Stephen Holder joining us on the Java House Cold Brew Coffee guest line. Probably should have admitted that about the press release, but it is pretty cool. Did you happen to see, Eddie, the one time you came over on Boo Duty, did you happen to see the Jordan sign or the press releases, the framed Jordan press releases?
Yeah, I did.
Really?
Uh-huh.
They were in my bedroom. What were you doing in my bedroom?
You told me I could walk around the entire place. Okay. So I was just looking at all the different things you had hung up.
Which, by the way, you're one of like 8 people that have ever seen most of that. Really? I have all this stuff, and I'm like, why? Nobody ever sees any of it, right? Just random stuff hanging all over the place. What's the most random thing you have hanging inside your residence? Or like your favorite thing, the old thing, like the house is on fire and the people and pets are out. What are you going in and saving?
It's a great question. I don't know. I don't really have a lot of stuff hung up. That's a good one.
Are you fired up for opening day, though?
Oh, don't get me started. Working on John Sadak for tomorrow.
You're fired up, huh?
Yes.
Call it right now. World Series, who?
Oh, man. Dodgers and American League is kind of a toss-up. I think it's obviously the Dodgers to lose, right?
I mean, obvious. It's incredible. The amount of talent on that rock. And you know what? I've said before, if you go to a Dodgers game in Dodger Stadium, and you walk around and you go through just the hallways and the everything they have hanging up in there, and you Chavez Ravine and the palm trees out in the outfield, it's the cleanliness of the uniforms. The Dodgers may be the most likable team and franchise that otherwise have every reason to be unlikable. Typically, when franchises are that dominant and they win that much, and they spend that much, and you don't like them. But I look at the Dodgers, most franchises, if the Yankees, which they do, spend that kind of money, you're like, yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous, the rich getting richer. But the Dodgers, it's like, hey, you know what? Kudos to the Dodgers for being committed to winning. And the Yankees have good uniforms, but the Dodgers, something about that royal blue and the clean white and just the crisp, clean air look of Dodger Stadium. I don't know. Like every time the Yankees are playing in the postseason, it's cold and gray and damp. And Dodger Stadium's just everything about it's perfect. Now, you probably hate the Dodgers, right, Eddie, because you're a Reds fan?
I mean, I don't like the Dodgers, but at this point.
But they don't break out like the hatred in you, right?
No, it's more, I have more hatred towards the other teams in Major League Baseball that aren't willing to spend the money, and they end up allowing the Dodgers to build this super team.
Okay, fair.
It's more or less of owners in baseball being cheap and unwilling to pay players, and they get the opportunity to leave.
3 biggest culprits in that. Pittsburgh,
Kansas
City,
the Athletics, the Reds, Kansas City, although Kansas City has done a terrific job with their farm system and drafting and developing players lately.
How about Minnesota?
Minnesota, they were on the brink of making the playoffs a year ago, and at the trade deadline, they entirely decided to blow up the team. But in terms of to come out of the American League, I think it's the Boston Red Sox this year.
Okay. I could see that.
They had a good year last year. They added a couple pitchers in that starting rotation. They were relatively young in the lineup. Yes, they lose Alex Bregman, but he was out for most of the season last year. I like what they've got, and I think they could be a sneaky good team.
What about my AL team? They got a shot?
Hey, root for me.
No,
Is that who you're talking about?
That's Cute Fella. That's the Orioles.
I didn't know if you were talking about Cute Fella or if you were talking about Toronto.
The more aggressive bird.
They're running back pretty much the entirety of last year's roster. It's just going to be they added Dylan Cease just a matter of time before Shane Bieber's healthy. They'll have a really good 1, 2, 3, 4 with Trey Savage.
Their presumed ace is going to start out on the IR, though.
Kevin Gausman's on the IR. He's their ace, in my opinion.
Postseason ace.
Oh, Trey Savage?
Yes.
I mean, he's still young. We need to see what he can do over the course of a season, but yeah.
And we see this a lot in the postseason. Sometimes it's fool's gold because you get a pitcher that comes in the postseason and looks lights out, and you realize it's only because pitcher or batters have not seen them a lot over the regular season. Then once they cycle through and they've done it a couple of times, you know what I mean?
I'm fascinated to see how they replace the offensive production of Bo Bichette.
That's also very fair.
Because he had such a career year last year for them.
He did. He was a timely hitter, no question about it. Timely hitter. Speaking of timely, good time for something to happen last night in Florida as it relates to Indiana. We'll tell you about it next.
Barry and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
This from Corey, and I think he's pretty close on this. Hey, Jake, Corey says, all of Mike Krzyzewski's titles came in Indianapolis, it would seem, so that would bode well for Duke. I think that's pretty close. Let's take a look, shall we? Duke men's basketball national championships. 1991, yes, the first right here at the Hoosier Dome then. And the shocking defeat of UNLV in the semifinals, and then they defeated Kansas in the national championship game. But a year later in 1992, it was Minneapolis in the Metrodome. That's when they defeated Indiana. And actually, while we were in the break, Ted Valentine just called another whistle on Indiana in that game. It's ridiculous.
Stephen Holder texted me, Jake, and he said, tell the listeners I was reading my bracket incorrectly and gave a completely impossible Final Four. UConn and Duke are in the same region. Don't think they can be in the Final Four.
Yeah, I picked Connecticut just because everyone was going to pick Duke, but it's hard to go against Duke. I get it.
Right. They've been one of the most consistent teams in all of college basketball.
The 2001 national championship for Duke. That was not in – where was 2001? 2010 and 2015 were both Indy, correct? 2001, the Final Four, was also in Minneapolis. 2010 Final Four, Lucas Oil. 2015 national championship game also. That's amazing. So he won all of them in either Indianapolis or Minneapolis, did Mike Krzyzewski. Pretty impressive. Last night, and I mentioned this off the top of the show, when the Pacers acquired Pascal Siakam, they were getting a guy that has an unbelievable ability to score on the low block, obviously a good defender, and just overall a veteran leadership that brought with him an NBA title. And when they traded for him, there was a lot of discussion about whether or not, should they give him a max deal. Speaking of Wisconsin, that Duke defeated in that national championship at Lucas Oil Stadium, that Wisconsin team, of course, defeated the 38-0 Kentucky Wildcats in the national semifinal. And that big red W was all over downtown Indianapolis, as it should have been. And I think a lot of people forget there was another game to be played after that. It's kind of like the Olympics Miracle on Ice. That was the semifinals. But those big red W's all over Indianapolis were as big as the red W to spell out the word wrong, which I was about Pascal Siakam and giving him a max deal. It has been a fabulous sign for the Pacers, and he has worked out perfectly. And a big thing of what he did, and a big part of probably why he was acquired, was when, after that first season, he brought the entire roster down to his home, which I believe is right outside of Orlando, or at that time was, and had all of them there to work out and get familiar with one another and bond, a team field trip, if you will. And that went a long way in developing this chemistry that you saw a year ago. You just heard JMV in that promo talking about communicating on the basketball floor. And there's something to be said about communication on a basketball floor that isn't even verbal, where one guy can just look at another and they know. And I watch it a lot when they run up at the top of the key and they're moving the ball around, and you can see one guy just glance at the other and they automatically know. Nimhard automatically knows where it is that Siakam's cutting, or Jarris Walker automatically knows where it is that Micah Potter is going to flash across the lane. Maybe that's a bad example because Potter wasn't there last year, but you get what I'm saying. And that sort of just symbiotic feel for one another on the basketball floor is as much developed in playing pickup games as it is just in being around one another all the time. And just knowing, a lot of people, and I know this sounds crazy, and I'm not comparing what we do to the NBA, and I'm not saying that we are NBA level athletes, none of that. But it's the only thing by which I can truly compare or relate. If you listen to the Indianapolis 500 on the radio, and I'm just going by what people ask me a lot. When we do what we call the roundies and we do the laps, and people are like, how do you know when to pick it up from the last guy? And we have ways to do it. It's very hard to hear. I have the benefit that Michael Young throws it to me, and Michael Young, when he steps out of his house and talks, people hear it in El Paso. But
are they hearing it down in Barber already?
Yes. But they're also, because, Eddie, we do the race in Barber, because we do the race in Long Beach, we are around each other so much that you just instinctively know the cadence of the person that is talking and and you just know when they're tailing off and when it's your turn to go. And so that natural handoff that takes place is because we're around each other all the time.
It's kind of like you and me.
Very similar in time. But the same thing I think happens in basketball. And Siakam a year ago, you saw the payoff of him developing those guys together in Orlando. And last night in Orlando, what happened was beyond just the Pacers getting their first win since the All-Star break. It was, as I said earlier, to quote the great Joel Cornette, it was the Pacers' way of saying, we are still here. They won in Oklahoma City. They won in New York. Those games were symbolic to send a message to the two teams that they most, obviously in the case of New York and then Oklahoma City, different result, but their tightest battles and their biggest battles in last year's postseason. And this year, because they are in the gap year and because they're down key players and the most key and their engine is not there, it was important to send the message not just to those franchises, but also to themselves to say, we're still here. We still got it a little bit. Don't write us off just yet. And this game last night was symbolic because they're not going to screw it up and drop out of contention for and alter their odds and their percentage chances of keeping that top 4 pick. But what they did do last night was prove to themselves and just reawaken their taste buds to that taste of important victory. And Pascal Siakam, last night on the FanDuel television network, after the Pacers win, when he had the game-winning block, talked with Jeremiah Johnson just about the symbolism and the understanding as a team, the significance of getting that kind of a win at this point in the year.
We got to get some wins, man. We got to keep building as a team. It's been tough. It's been a tough year for us, man. And it shows your character. It's going to test you, but that's life. So we're not going to back down. We're going to keep fighting for each other, keep working. And we're just hopeful that, good things going to happen from us just continue to work and not giving up.
Good things are going to happen. I mean, that's the big thing here, because Siakam went on to say it, that you can parlay last night into maybe that little boost that you need coming off of your gap year.
Yeah, I think it's just continue to focus on the basics. I think it's like I said, I'm going to keep saying it's been a hard year for us. So trying not to lose identity, who we are, Pacer basketball. Some of the things that I fell in love, coming here and playing for the Pacers, we just want to keep that. Like, I think it's really it's something special. So I know it's hard, and I think, the fans have been so awesome with us, sticking with us, and I just think that, at the end it's going to be a reward. I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I just know that, with the fight and continue to work and just continue to battle, we're going to get out of it.
I'm telling you, the reward is going to be that they can get already, you flip Matherin for Zubats, But if you can flip Matherin for Zubats and Matherin's replacement of off-bench minutes from whether it be DeBonsa, whether it be Wilson, Boozer, I know people love Peterson. I'm still not sold. I feel like that's Evan Turner part duh. But either way, I think last night was significant because of what it means. And what it means, I know it's just one win, and I know it's just number 16. But what it means is simply, when it comes down to it, don't forget about us because we're still here.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Did you happen to see, Eddie, Jeff Teague's comments regarding the Pacers and where they would draft?
I did.
To paraphrase, because it's 3 minutes long, he basically said that he thinks the Pacers would go with Cam Boozer because DeBonsa would be a star-type player and Halliburton is the star, right?
Yeah, to kind of summarize it in that way, yeah, I felt like the Bonds would be too much of like a diva and overtake Tyrese as the team's franchise player and face.
Okay.
Like, what are you doing?
I mean,
if you get the first pick, that's the whole point, right? You take the best player
right,
to be the franchise guy?
Yes, I would think. Yeah, I'm with you. I was just like, what? I mean, I didn't necessarily agree. Jeff Teague obviously played for the franchise, knows a lot more about playing in the NBA than do I, but
I think he has some animosity and some angst towards the Pacers based off some comments he's made in the last 2 years.
that may be. We can get him on. I ran into Jeff Teague the night before the year he was drafted. The night before the draft, he was walking around Caston Square eating gummy worms.
Are we sure they were gummy worms?
They definitely were gummy worms, yes.
No, like, Jake, gummy worms.
No, they were. They were just regular gummy bears.
Are we sure?
Are
we sure?
Long conversation with him.
Okay.
I like Jeff Teague a lot. Jeff Teague, I recall when I was giving out the Channel 6 Star of the Week award, there was one particular week where I'm like, what about this Jeff Teague kid at Pike? He's averaging like 16 a game. They're ranked number one.
Mm-hmm.
And then he went to Wake, and we're like, oh, okay. Their Wake is ranked number one, and boom, he's off and running, and ran into him. It was funny. I was with Shannon. We were in the mall, and we run into Jeff Teague, and I recognized him just from working at 6, and he was only 3 years removed from high school at that time. And I said, hey, do you have any idea of where you're going to be drafted? And he said, well, I had a really good meeting with the Knicks. Shannon didn't say a word. Like, okay.
Shout out to Evan Sherrill and Cluster Truck for bringing us our lunch today, Jake. I went with the chicken strips because although the Dunk Fest is not going on today, it is something that does contain the chicken strips. You get 2 pounds of chicken strips, cheesy bread, chips and queso, churros, all for $40. And when you go to checkout, make sure you use code BIGFAN. You get $5 off of that order. It's any day that there is a college men or women's tournament game going on. So it picks back up tomorrow.
And he brought me some hummus. JMV was talking about the hummus yesterday. Brought me some hummus.
Not tomorrow. I believe it's Thursday. But yes, he overheard you and John yesterday talking about JMV's love for the hummus. And you said, I got to try that. And so he was like, you know what? I'll put some pita bread in there with some of that hummus, and I'll let Jake try it.
I will try it here shortly. I asked this earlier, Eddie. I was staring at, and thank you to Evan and Cluster Truck's the very best, obviously. Last night, after the Pacers game, I got to thinking. And this is
a
true.
Slippery slope.
It's like your slip and slide you had as a kid, right?
I know, right?
I got to thinking about this. And I think that nostalgia comes into play here. But most teams, when they redo their color scheme and their logo, they rebrand. Most of them, it makes you thirst for the original color scheme and logo. Usually, when they redo it, you're like, nah, I like the other one better. Very seldom, and there's an element of marketing genius to it because then you sell more of the new stuff. You wait a couple of years. You bring back like on limited release the old logo, and people go gaga crazy over it, right?
Yeah. Although I think there were 2 teams that redid their logos and everything recently that I think are better than the original.
Okay, you think they're better? Give me the league.
1 NFL and 1 minor league.
Oh, the Indians.
Yes.
Yeah, the Indians is pretty strong.
They start their season Friday night at Victory Field.
It's strong. Now, do they still do the temperature opening day challenge?
I'm sure they're going to. It's a staple.
60-degree challenge, right?
It's a staple with them, yeah. I'd have to look.
If it's not 60 degrees, you get tickets for a later time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're saying there's an NFL team that you feel redid their stuff.
Yep.
How recently did they redo it?
This offseason.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Did I miss this?
There's a chance.
So there is a team that has a new look, new logo, new et cetera, and you like it better than the old variation.
Mm-hmm.
Is the logo different?
Yes, it is.
Is the logo anything, has it been used before?
Kind of.
The Jets.
No.
Hit me.
The Tennessee Titans.
I did not see the, oh, no, wait a minute. Maybe I did. Hold on. It's kind of a cross with the Oilers, right?
Yes.
It's more of the baby blue.
Baby blue. They
Oiler
got the
blue?
T in the middle and 3 stars.
Okay, that's not bad. But I thought about the Pacers.
Now, how would the Cleveland Browns redo their logo is the question. Huh?
I go back to the elf.
Yeah.
I thought about the Pacers, and I love the original Pacers logo. Love it. I love the colors. I love everything about it. But in reality, when they went to the FloJos is when everything turned around for them. They redid their logo and their color. They went from the kind of the royal blue and gold into the more navy type blue and gold, and then the moving basketball inside of the P. Right around 92 or 93, and that's right when they took off. And, of course, then the 94 season and the rest is history. What franchises can you think of that underwent a logo brand change in professional sports and it actually turned around the fortune of the franchise? Because there are some that you're like, yeah, I mean, the Marlins have had 15 different logos and color schemes in the last 15 years, and you're like, yeah, it's still the Marlins.
Right. Obviously, the Jets have done it, but it hasn't brought good fortune recently.
Correct. There are a couple that jump to mind to me, and I'm like, the Pacers being one of them.
Washington?
The Commanders?
Mm-hmm.
See, I wouldn't go there, though, because they had the greatest fortune as a franchise back when they were still the Redskins, right?
True.
Okay. The Buccaneers, I mean, the creamsicles are awesome, and Bucko Bruce is awesome, but also those were the years of the greatest futility in NFL history.
The Rams?
The Rams would be one. When the Rams went to the St. Louis Rams and the gold, they had the gold helmets in the greatest show on turf, that was their peak.
Yeah.
I mean, they had some good years in L.A., don't get me wrong, and they obviously are good now. But the Rams would be another. I also thought of this one, and this franchise was good, but they didn't win the Super Bowl until they switched, and that's the Broncos. Once the Broncos, and I think a lot of people prefer the old Bronco helmets, but their greatest success has come since they changed. Now,
can the Reds go back to the logo they used to have? Maybe it brings that iteration of
Are you
success
talking
back?
about Mr. Red in the running motion?
Yes.
It's the greatest.
Yes.
It's the greatest. But that was never their primary logo, though, right? I mean, their logo has always been – where the Reds got in trouble is when they went away from just the standard C and they did the black bordering on the background of it.
Mm-hmm.
The Dolphins are a good example. There is –
Yeah, Mr. Red with the C, is that the one you're talking about, or just Mr. Red himself? Yeah, the Mr. Red with him running was 72 to 92.
But that was never on the hat, is what I'm saying. I mean, it was the logo, but it was never on the hat. It was never the main primary logo. The main primary logo was still on the hat, was the C. Now, the Dolphins had – think about this. You had a little fella that was jumping through a hoop, and even while jumping through the hoop, had the presence of mind to wear a helmet. Now that, just the thought process alone and the brilliance of the jumping dolphin, that guy's jumping with a porpoise, right? And yet they did away with that into this flipper-looking thing, and they've been terrible ever since. So it's a slippery slope, to use your term, right?
Now Jake, I got a question. I know we got to tight here. We have a minute. Did you see the story in the news yesterday?
I saw a lot of stories in the news yesterday.
About the cornhole player?
I did. A lot of questions about that.
Yeah, quadruple amputee cornhole player accused of fatally shooting a man while driving.
How did he shoot him? Because
That's a great question.
Well, he was unarmed, right? I'm just being. Let's be real here, right?
How was he driving?
Also a good
That's
question.
the bigger question.
Also, do they have a mugshot of the individual? Did you say a quadruple amputee?
Yeah.
And he fired a weapon?
This was in Maryland.
Do they have video? Now, is he a former cornhole champion? There are a lot of question marks about this story, right?
27 years old, Dayton James Weber.
Okay. Yeah, I saw the headline of that. I didn't read the story. I was, like many, perplexed. Mercifully, Scott Agness, Fieldhouse Files, joins us next. Hey there, Jake Query. Big news coming up from Surfside just a couple weeks from now. New product coming out. I told you how much the blueberry lemonade has, and people have loved the blueberry lemonade, but they've got another line coming out from Surfside a couple weeks. Can't wait to tell you about that. Surfside, what exactly is it? Iced tea and lemonade in vodka in a can. You can get iced tea and the lemonade in vodka in a can. You get iced tea with a splash of vodka or lemonade with a splash of vodka, all from Surfside, and a new beverage coming out in a couple of weeks that is going to be perfect for summer. And all of them are just 100 calories, 2 grams of sugar, and no carbonation, so smooth to enjoy. Look for the can with the sunset stripes. That's Surfside wherever you buy your favorite adult beverages. Please be 21 and please consume responsibly.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
Eddie, you know what we have not done in quite some time, and we're going to revisit it here, and here's how we're going to do this.
Oh, boy.
Okay? We are going to go to the Java House Cold Brew Coffee guest line. Okay. And I'm going to allow Scott Agness from Fieldhouse Files to complete. What we're going to do is I'm going to do this little exercise that we do. I have the NBA Draft Tankathon in front of me. I will do the simulator. You will do the sounder. I will then announce in my David Stern impression which numbered pick the Pacers have in our Tankathon. And then right when I say the Indiana Pacers select, we will have Scott Agness complete the thought by telling us who the Pacers would select if that is, in fact, the pick that they are selecting.
Okay.
Now, of course, if this lands for us outside of the top 4, then that means that pick goes to the Clippers, and our little exercise is null and void. Right?
Scott, are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. With the first pick in the 2026 NBA Draft, the Indiana Pacers select.
What pick are they?
Scott, is this your first time on the program? We'll do this again here, Eddie. Now, Scott, pay attention. Here we go. Okay. With the first pick in the 2026 NBA Draft, the Indiana Pacers select
AJ Debonsa from BYU.
Okay, now I did it again, and it landed them on second. Let's just say, for the sake of discussion, that Debonsa goes first to Sacramento. In your opinion, then, Scott, who goes second?
Right now, it seems like Darren Peterson.
I know, and I'll tell you what. You tell me if I'm crazy. I'm not sold on him. Am I out of my mind?
No, I think you are like a lot of scouts and league executives that want to learn more. It feels incomplete to them more than any other of the top prospects.
I watch him, Scott. Scott Agness, by the way, of Fieldhouse Files, is our guest. We're going to be talking Pacers here. When I watch Peterson, and people that know a lot more than I that get paid to do this for a living seem to love him. Now, that's not to say that those people are always right either. You know what I mean? But when I've watched him, I'm not kidding you. It seems like, Scott, 90% of the time, and I've watched a fair amount of Kansas, but whenever I look up, I'm like, oh, man, okay, that's a nice move, and he's open, and that's a good look. Okay, he missed it. I mean, and then I look, and I'm like, he's 3 for 11 in this game. He shot 44%, I think, from the floor. He feels to me, do you remember when the Pacers got Evan Turner, and it was like, oh, my gosh, lights out, it's over. Evan Turner, a Pacer. And
yeah, he acquired him hoping he'd be part of a group that took them over the top.
Correct.
Yeah.
And he was a dominant college player. And he was an okay pro. Don't get me wrong. He was a nice player. But he was never like an it player. And I feel like Debonsa is a can't-miss it player. Right?
Yeah, it does feel that way, 100%. I mean, all these guys, the trickery in all this is they're just so young and inexperienced. And so you don't have much of a landscape, a canvas to go off of here. And so, I think also the challenge has become in college, there's so many people in these players' ears. And so you don't know what they're being told, what they're being suggested, what advice they are following. Are they there just for the money? How much do they love the game? Those are the things these executives, more than their game, are just trying to siphon through and figure out before they want to commit something long-term. Because here's the thing. With a top 4 pick, with a top pick, you need a sure thing. Now, there obviously aren't any guarantees, right? We've seen that many a times. But this is not picking 15th or 16th where you hope maybe they could be a starter one day. Maybe they could have all-star potential. No, you got to hit on this, especially if it's number 1, because the Pacers have never selected there.
Not only that, it is amazing that they've never had a player on their roster who had been selected number 1, even if it was selected number 1 by someone else, right? We've talked about it a million times. I'm hoping that the karma finally pays them off and they end up in the top 4. But let's talk about last night, Scott, and the Pacers getting that win in Orlando. Yes, it is relatively meaningless. It means that they are now tied with Washington for the fewest wins still in the NBA, but they are tied for the worst record, not the worst record overall. What symbolically, though, did that win mean for them?
I think more than anything, Jake, it was a feel-good moment for them, a monkey off their back. But at the same time, did you take note of how they play? Like, it was notable to me that the starters were there in crunch time, that they all played 4 players played over 34 minutes. Rotation was tightened to 9 as if it was a playoff game. To me, Jake, this was a group that needed a more than a moral victory, and they rallied behind Pascal Siakam and got it done. So more than the standings, this is a moment that can help probably get them through these final 10 games, because that losing streak of 16, which is clearly a franchise record, had been weighing on them.
And I thought it was big and symbolic, Scott, and I want you to kind of add to this. I talked about it over the course of the show today. Pascal Siakam is beyond just a very elite low-post scorer who can also shoot from the outside. For him to cement that win, it looked like – the monkey off the back is a good way of saying it, but it looked like it was Siakam basically saying, we beat Oklahoma City there to let them know that we're still here. We beat New York there to let them know that we're still here. But we needed to get a win where we had to dig deep just to show to ourselves that we're still here. Do you agree with that? Does that make sense?
I do. I mean, these guys are competitors, and that's what helped get them to this level. And so you don't see Pascal wanting to sit and just take it easy the rest of the season. He's on a max contract. They're not in the playoffs. He was still already received his all-star celebration. He wants to see this thing through. And I think, again, he has become the gem that the Pacers, more than the Pacers or any of us knew about or expected with acquiring him. We knew his talents on the floor, but he's not a vocal guy. He's become a vocal guy. Hadn't been a big leader because he hadn't needed to be. He's become just that. And I think as much as the coaching staff challenged them earlier in the day in Orlando, I think these players also collectively said, hey, let's rally. We're tired of this. So if they're going to play us, let's make the most of it. And so much of what last season, Jake, was made up of was not just them getting to the finals. To me, the most memorable thing was about the way in which that team rallied to make these theatrical comebacks. It was, Tyrese Halliburton's 4-point play in the corner over Milwaukee at the end of the regular season and game-winning shots. And they haven't been put in those moments very often this season. They were in this game, and I think they were able to kind of feel something again.
Moving forward, Scott, for the remainder of the season here, do you anticipate that we will see, in some cases, a continuation, I guess, but a minute restriction for, let's say, Nembhard, McConnell, Toppin, those three? Are they going to keep it where it is right now, where you just kind of never know from one game to the next what sort of minutes they're going to get?
I think relatively that'll be the case, except for Toppin. Is we kind of know it's about 18 minutes, 16 minutes for Toppin is what Rick Carlisle and the training staff are trying to keep him at the rest of the season. That we do know. McConnell's generally around 20 minutes, but he's having to play more. And then Nembhard, I think you're trying to keep him below 30, but if he's out there, you're wanting to play him.
Yeah, and Nembhard's an interesting one because, we've seen games before where he's had a really good first half and then he doesn't even come out in the second half, right? How have you assessed the way Toppin has looked in his return?
Yeah, fair question. I think I think he's been a guy that has the first couple games a little tentative, which is totally to be expected, by the way. A foot, something you use on every movement. And, he's so dependent on his speed down the floor, galloping, and then also his high-flying finishes. And I think after the first game or two, I think he's really settled in nicely and playing freely out there. And so I think he's been a big piece that we probably have not talked enough about this season when we talk about the losing streaks and how he's been unavailable most of the way.
Scott, last question I wanted to ask you, because you do cover the Pacers beyond just the X's and O's of the team itself. And I know, obviously, that what I'm about to mention has to do more with the Simon Property Group and not with the Pacers. And I don't mean from a transfer of ownership standpoint and those sorts of things, but just in somebody who has been around the Pacers a lot, who has worked within the organization, who knows a lot of the people over there. Obviously yesterday with the loss within the Simon family that came, we learned this story essentially as we were on the air yesterday. I think it was probably just about 24 hours ago. And the CEO of the Simon Property Group and the son of Melvin Simon, obviously the nephew of Herb Simon. But at the age of 64 yesterday, we learned of the passing of David Simon. And I didn't know if there's anything that you could add, either from a personal perspective or just what he meant to the family and the family business as well, and that loss towards the city.
Yeah, I think more than anything, we feel it from a city standpoint and how much the Simons have meant. They're one of our most famous and impactful families, I think, right away. You think about Indianapolis, you think about the Simons and what they've done. And obviously, David did not have any influence in basketball or anything like that. But to me, Jake, and you'll appreciate this probably more than anyone, is I go directly to the Simon Cancer Center and how impactful that has been for the city, but especially the individuals that have needed that. And Mel passed away with cancer, and now his son far too soon here at 64. But that $50 million boost to that Simon Cancer Center, just so impactful, more than I'll ever know, obviously. But it's just so great to have this Simon family, even though I don't know David or anything like that. But an Indy native, went to IU, Kelly School of Business. So those are the things that I took away.
Scott, appreciate the time as always. Pacers and Lake Show tomorrow night, correct?
That's right. Yep.
All right, Pacers, Lakers tomorrow night, Fieldhouse Files, all the coverage. Appreciate it, Scott.
Okay, thanks, Jake.
Scott Agness joining us on the Java House Cold Brew Coffee guest line. Eddie, let's do one more tankathon here because I'm not going to lie to you. I hit a streak there where I had several in a row that went with. Do
we really want to end that streak, though?
No, I had several in a row where it was fifth.
Oh, okay.
Which is not good. So this is the end-all be-all right here, right? Even though we had last one with the one, but then I screwed it up because I went with a couple more. Okay, I'm not even looking. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Here we go. With the fourth pick in the 2026 NBA Draft, the Indiana Pacers select Cameron Boozer from Duke University. Although it would probably be Caleb Wilson in that case because Boozer would probably go third. Would they start looking? Caleb Wilson, I think, is intriguing, but he's coming off the injury. There's some question there. I had one person tell me that he had Sean Kemp-type potential.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
Would there be interest, do you think? Would they go guard?
Oh, man. I don't know.
I think Darius Acuff is moving up, I'm telling you.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, Kingston Fleming's of Houston because of presumably the way he guards.
Acuff with the Pacers offense in their system would be fun. That would be very fun. Although, like, then you run into the, okay, would you rather have Acuff long term or would you rather keep Nembhard in here? I don't know. It's a fact. Like you're trying. The main need for the Pacers right now is they need people that are disruptive defensively with length, who can get into passing lanes,
Correct.
help rebound, defend. And drafting Acuff wouldn't give you the immediate return on investment there, but it could give you a long-term option.
I think the thing that I always go back to when you start talking about drafting replacement for a veteran, or not replacement, but, hey, if they brought in, Acuff, what does that mean for Nembhard? You always go with and defer to the known commodity, right? We know Nembhard has done the hard part. He's proven he can play in the NBA. I'm not saying that Acuff can't, but we don't know yet. I mean, he may be. Acuff to me has a. If you had to give an NBA comparison for Darius Acuff, who are you going with?
I don't know.
It in my mind.
I honestly have no idea because he's such a unique player. 6'3", can obviously score the rock. Damian Lillard.
Okay, that's not bad. The one, and I don't see. They used to give you like comparisons when you would look at it. Okay, here we go. Now they don't list a comparison for him. I think Anthony Edwards
Yeah, but you forget that Edwards is 6'5".
I get it. But he has that same get out of my way mentality, right? Just a nose to the grind. I mean, I'm not going to say he has carried Arkansas to this point, but he's been pretty darn good. And it's been in the second half of the year where he's been pretty darn good. And, then Kingston Flemings. Now, the Kingston Flemings player comparison that they have, I'm sorry, they're comparing him to, they don't have a, reminds me of level comparison. They just compare him to Darius Acuff, which seems odd. But here's what I was told by somebody who does this for a living. And that is DeBonsa. This was a mid-season report card. DeBonsa and Peterson are the clear, I think, amongst executives, seen as the clear top two. And I think in DeBonsa's case, it's more about a clear understanding of where he is right now. And in Peterson's case, it's more about where he prospectively is going to be. I think DeBonsa is much more plug it in right now and ready to go. But I think with Peterson, you look at it and you just say he can score in so many different ways. He just doesn't do it consistently enough for me. But he can get to the basket, no doubt. Third would be, and I think for the Pacers, they have Boozer third, but maybe that gap is closing a little bit. Boozer, though, is seen, I think, as the safest pick, but also with Boozer, you have it's like when you do investments and your money person says, how aggressive do you want to be? Well, I want to be really conservative. I want to, okay, in that case, then we're going to buy you this stock because while it is guaranteed that it's never going to go below 180 a share, but it probably will never eclipse 300, but you're not going to lose anything. Okay, fine. Now, this stock over here, there are many that believe it's going to be 350 a share in a year, but it may go from 180 a share down to 60. How risky do you want to be? And I think that there are players in this draft that are that way. Now, Caleb Wilson and Boozer is seen as the safest, but lower ceiling. Caleb Wilson was told to me he might be the most explosive, like a Sean Kemp level player. But again, there have been plenty of players. I mean, there are guys that you saw in college and you said, that guy's going to be unbelievable. I thought Jahlil Okafor was going to be a great pro player.
Right.
I thought Marvin Bagley was going to be a really good player. He's okay. He's just a guy, right? And I'll tell you one, if we're going way back, if we're talking about Final Fours in Indy and that kind of thing, I thought Stromile Swift was going to be a really good player. Or Tyrus Thomas, was that the other guy that was on his team at LSU? I thought those guys were both going to be very powerful NBA players. And they were just kind of a guy. Nothing wrong with that. Now, I'll tell you the kind of player that I love. There's an NBA player currently playing that, and you've heard me say this before, Eddie, that to me would be the perfect Pacer. This kind of a player. And I'm not talking about a franchise player. I'm saying if you were going to go out and get yourself in the late first, early second, the kind of guy your team needs, and it's the one person, and don't get me wrong, the chemistry last year of the Pacers was so good, I wouldn't want to screw it up. But there's one guy in the league that I look at and I go, that's the kind of player this team needs in terms of everything he brings to a team. And he's been an arch nemesis of the Pacers for a couple of years. Who am I talking about? The fans hate him.
LeBron?
Again, not elite, a role player. A sixth, seventh man player, maybe a fifth starter, but he hits open threes. He guards well on the wing. He rebounds. And he disrupts the other team and interrupts what they're trying to do and takes them out of flow.
Josh Hart?
Because he's a complete pain in the backside.
Josh Hart?
Nope. A big. I mean, kind of a tweener big, but a big. He plays bigger than he is. And he barks bigger than he is. Because he's constantly yapping. And he's got... Reggie Miller once said, every team needs a little bit of crazy.
I don't know who you're talking about.
And I don't know if this guy's a little bit of crazy, but he's got crazy eyes. You can tell sometimes when you're looking at guys' eyes. What's that?
Bobby Portis?
Ding, 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 ding. Say what you want, but he's effective. But at the same time, that chemistry is so good that maybe he's a little too much crazy. But I think a really good player. Jay Crowder is another one that I always said, like, you need a guy like that, right? Comes in there, looks like he's getting ready to go into a gladiator film. He's got more body armor on him than Barry Bonds. Probably smell the Bengay the second he checks into the lineup. Looks like a middle linebacker. Looks like he's built like Zaire Franklin. And just goes out there and hits shots and D's up, right?
Fun fact, Bobby Portis is second in the NBA in three-point shooting this year.
By percentage?
Yeah.
Can I guess the leader?
Yeah.
Is it a no-brainer?
If you know the NBA, yeah, it's a no-brainer.
Did he play at Duke?
Yes.
Is he from Ohio?
I don't know where he's from.
Is his first name significant within
he is from
science
Ohio.
fiction movies?
I don't know what we would be referencing.
Is his first name, but does his first name tell you that perhaps his dad is somebody he didn't know was his dad, but is a villain?
Yeah.
And I'm going to mispronounce his last name. Would it be Luke Kennard?
It is. Luke Kennard, 47.9%.
Now, I have a question for you, Eddie. And you've got to be honest. And I want you to, I need you right now to put on, and I know it's a size 9, but I want you to put on your truth serum hat, okay?
Okay.
Are you not the least bit impressed that I just pulled that out right off the top of my head when you asked that question, not thinking that I would know the answer?
I didn't know if you would know it or not, Jake. Like, you could know it, you could not know it, because
I'm very impressed with myself.
I mean, you go to every home game, so you see almost every team.
Yeah, but I don't see every stat, right? But I will tell you this. I don't know if you know this or not, but I'm very impressed by myself.
Of course you are.
On the regular, right?
Sure.
I'm just glad that you came up with a reason today for me to be impressed by myself.
Okay.
Because I love me some me, but every once in a while, I just need that little jolt, that little boost, right? Kind of like, guys, if you need exactly that jolt or boost, then Game Day Men's Health is the place for you. GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Whatever it might be, peptide therapy, testosterone therapy, weight loss injections, GameDayMen'sHealth.com is the answer for you. All right, there is something taking place with the Colts that we have not addressed other than about an hour and a half ago, but I'll tell you what that is coming up on the other side. And I just saw J&B walking around. We'll find out what he's got going on as part of our crossover coming up in about 25.
This is Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
You know, that's my favorite time of day. It's when I stop and look at the man in the mirror. JMV will be with us about 25 minutes from now. Just saw him outside. He was super excited about the fact that I got the hummus from Cluster Truck, which I was getting ready to try out, and then all of a sudden I heard Jacko singing and thought, oh, we're back. NFL owners meeting coming up on Sunday. It does feel like it doesn't have the same level of intrigue or oomph as we've had in years past of some of the, what in the world?
What in the world was that noise? You breaking stuff in there?
What's that?
You breaking stuff in there?
There's a panel that's loose down here. What in the world?
What are you doing kicking stuff, Jake? We just got this new studio. You're breaking stuff already?
It's just hanging around down here.
Why are you taking panels out?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Listen, I'm just sitting here minding my own business.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Listen, this is a fabulous studio in here, right? I love everything about it, right? But I'm just sitting here minding my own P's and Q's, and you know, I'm a bigger fella, and my knee hits something, and I look down, and somebody just left a door hanging around down here.
Sure.
It doesn't go to. I'm looking. It doesn't go to anything. This. Can you see, folks, right here? I feel like one of the Price is Right beauties. I'm like, you too could win this fabulous removable panel that might just hit you in the knee. I don't. What am I supposed to do with this? Do we know? Hang on. What?
I think you're breaking stuff.
No, I didn't even know it was down there. Somebody's hiding a panel around here. They're like, hey, let's go to that new studio they just built. It's state-of-the-art. We'll just lean the panel up against the wall, and then maybe somebody, if they're 6'4", their knee will hit it. The NFL owners meeting coming up on Sunday, and the Colts will be represented. And I know that, you know, this is obviously not – it has been, even when Jim Irsay was still living, that Carly Irsay-Gordon was the one – that was representing the franchise at the owners' meeting. So, you know, that element is not new. In the past, there have been very clear, you know, points of discussion of what exactly it was that the owners' meetings, you know, what they were going to discuss or new rules changes and things like that. It does feel like this is one that doesn't have the same level of there's not one burning topic. Am I right about that? Of like rules changes or anything like that? That
I think the one thing to monitor, Jake, is the officiating situation, because I believe that the contract between the Referees Association and the NFL is expired, and so there's a chance we get replacement officials if a new deal is not agreed upon. And I know the league is wanting to institute the use of technology more into officiating to make things quicker and more accurate.
Obviously, the increased salary cap will be discussed. I think, you know, the way that free agency and you know, the salary cap itself, as the cap goes up, how they go about free agency, the tampering, quote unquote, period, and all that is expected to be discussed. At some point, one would assume that the NFL is also going to discuss expansion. And it sounds crazy to talk about in terms of the expansion overseas, okay? But 5 years, 10 years from now is not that far away. I mean, it's 5 to 10 years. I don't know when the timing would be, but my thought, it is very clear that the NFL wants to expand its footprint. They've gone out of their way to continue to grow the game, and it is odd to think, because the NFL is so big here, And in no way, shape, or form am I pretending to be some sort of expert on European culture. And I've been very fortunate to go over to Europe, but it's only been in the last handful of years that I have experienced that. And one of the times that I was in Europe, I was in London. Matter of fact, I've been there several times at the same time that there were NFL Europe games going on. Now, I have not gone to the Colts games in Germany, but I was in England and it was the Patriots and I believe the Falcons were playing in London when I was in England. I was in London the day, and you saw a lot of American fans wearing the jerseys of the teams. And there was we were down near where the stadium was. There was some buzz about it. But in a place like London, there's so much going on, right? But it didn't seem like it was a huge groundswell of interest within the UK, And those that went to Germany, like to Frankfurt, for the Colts game, they may have, or Berlin this year, they might have a differing opinion of maybe they had a different observation. But the NFL has worked very, very hard and is continuing to do so to generate that interest. I think for a while there was the assumption the Jaguars were just going to move to London because they were playing so many games over there, right?
Well, and they kept winning over there.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're Jacksonville, you move anywhere you're winning, right? But if you're going to put, though, my thought is this. If you're going to put teams in Europe, don't you need to do at least 4 of them and have a division over there? Because how do you who in the world, it would be awesome to live in London or live in Barcelona or Munich. Great cities. Great. But would you really want to play for a franchise where you know that every road game you're going to a 5-hour time difference with a 6.5-hour flight at minimum every single time? How in the world do you get a free agent to agree to that? And then you get into the questions of, are you getting paid in euros or dollars? Are you getting paid in pounds or dollars? Because England is the pound, the rest of Europe is the euro. That you have, I mean, there are a gabillion things that go into play with that. Are you getting taxed in 2 different countries? I mean, there are so many intangibles. But the travel alone, it would seem as though you've got to kind of break that up. And then you get what could be another expansion in the fact that if you go Mexico City, and that's another market that they've long been trying to generate an interest in Mexico City. Anyway, my point being, I would think these are things that will come up in discussion at the owners' meeting.
There were 2 rule proposals, Jake, one by the Cleveland Browns and the other by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Which one would you like first?
We'll go with the Browns because that's probably destined to fail.
Cleveland proposed changing the NFL draft pick trading eligibility to 5 years out.
Okay. What is it now?
3.
Okay.
And
I mean, it gives you a little harder understanding of what you're getting back, but okay.
The Pittsburgh Steelers proposed a change to NFL free agency, allowing teams to directly contact up to 5 prospective unrestricted free agents during the league's legal tampering window.
Well, how many are you allowed to legally tamper with now?
0. Because
but it's legal tampering. If it's the tampering period and it's legal, then you're allowed to talk to somebody, right? Otherwise, what's legal? Is this the legal no speed zone? There must be a limit. You must be allowed to talk to some, but there's a limit to it, right?
1. Sorry. Make 1 video or phone call per player.
Okay. You notice that doesn't say anything about texting, right?
Yeah.
Kelvin Sampson's been hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sometimes, and it's brilliant of them. It's brilliant of them. The NFL is brilliant in this regard.
Oh, I was right. During the legal tampering window, under current NFL rules, teams are not allowed to make direct contact with a player who is set to become an unrestricted free agent at the start of the new league year.
Then what's the legal part mean?
Yeah, I wish I could tell you.
Then how did we get all of these announcements that were coming during the legal tampering period?
That's a great question.
I mean, here's where the NFL is brilliant. Because it is March. We're in the middle of March Madness. The Sweet 16 is here. Purdue's getting ready to play Texas for the right to go to the regional finals. And we're going to shift a lot more into that over the next 2 days because they play Thursday night. And we'll go down to Austin and we'll talk to people that cover Texas and we'll get you all caught up to speed on it, right? And Purdue does deserve better than that. They deserve, we've talked a lot about like what Purdue does in the tournament and everything else. But you've got March Madness going on. We are amidst the heading down into the home stretch of the NBA season, not as significant in Indianapolis, but for the most part on the calendar. You've got baseball starting up this week. Auto racing, whether you're a fan of stock car, IndyCar, whatever it might be, is, up and running now.
You're going to Alabama?
I am going to Alabama. Driving down with Michael Young on Friday.
Oh, goodness.
I know. And then I'll be deaf by Sunday. And so, but all of that going on, and what are we talking about? We're talking about the NFL owners meeting and the draft and everything. I mean, the NFL has masterfully set itself up to always be in the conversation. It is a 12-month calendar. January, playoffs. February, Super Bowl. March, owners meeting. April, draft. Throw the combine, by the way, there in late February. April, draft. May, getting ready for OTAs, rookie camp. June, throw somewhere in here, by the way, like schedule release day. 2 different owners meetings. I mean, right now, it's mock draft, by the way. And Omar Cooper apparently has worked his way into the first round discussion.
I know. One of the biggest winners so far.
If I'm Omar Cooper, I'm doing nothing but showing to. I'm literally walking into my job interview, and when they say, what can you do for us? I put in the tape of the Penn State play. There you go. Any other questions? I'm 9.5 feet off the ground, and I bring the ball down and perfectly tap my toe and get it in. The body control, everything about that play. That might have been the biggest anomaly of all time. Fine. We'll take it. If I was a college baseball player and there's one play of me hitting a ball that leaves Yankee Stadium because I hit a 595-foot home run, there you go. There's my tape. See ya. Any questions? Here's my number. Call me. Google me. But good for him that he's worked his way into the first round. And it looks like that's, he may go. And again, Mendoza is a big part of that, but Cooper's also a big part of Mendoza. I mean, without that catch, does Mendoza win the Heisman, et cetera, et cetera? Who knows? J&B in the building, crossover, brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air, love-hvac.com, 317-353-2141 coming up.
You're listening to Query and Company on 93.5 and 107.5 The Fan.
By the way, Eddie, do you recall recently when we had on the women's basketball coach from Marian University? A couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, it was part of our Franciscan Health Feel Good, Good for the Heart Friday. And at that time, it was a great story because we were talking about the fact that the women's basketball team was on their way. They were riding, I believe, an 8-game win streak at that time. They have 2 players on the roster whose mother tragically passed away from a heart attack, actually. And the team kind of banded together. They already were, a nationally ranked team. But they kind of banded together to finish strong on the season. And now here they are at 34-2 and playing tonight at 8 o'clock against Dordt University of Iowa in the NAIA National Championship game this evening at 8 o'clock. So
let's go Giants.
We wish
the
Knights the very best of luck from Marian University. Very, very, very cool. No question.
For some reason, I was thinking Wabash. I don't know why.
Well, when it comes to women's basketball, if they had that at Wabash, that would be something.
That's exactly, I know that. Yep. Uh-huh.
Have you ever been to the Monon Bell game?
Total gaff. No, I have not.
It's great. There are 2 things when it comes to smaller schools in Indiana that I think everyone should do. The Monon Bell game is one of them. I went 4 times in college. Wabash is 4-0. And I've always kind of rooted for Wabash over DePaul. No offense to Tiger friends. And the other would be Silent Night up at Taylor. We went to that last year. And, I remember talking about it when I came back from it. But it really was, for those that are unfamiliar, Taylor University, the basketball program, they do in December their Silent Night game where everybody's silent until the 10th point, and then everybody goes crazy, and the game is interrupted, and the kids rush the court. And then at the end of the game, they all sing Silent Night. And I know that I have seen people who have been critical of that game because they say, it's making a mockery of the game itself, and it's unfair to the other team because it's dangerous because the students rush the court. The other team, which is usually a theologically based university, it's been the same for the last couple of years. I think they know the whole deal, right? But as I mentioned at the time, the thing about going to see Silent Night at Taylor is it's very easy to roll your eyes at it and think it's kind of this hokey tradition or whatever else. But Taylor is a faith-based university, and it is a night when all of the students, sport is the opportunity to open or use platform for different areas. At big-time Division I universities, sport is oftentimes what allows its student athletes to springboard onto a professional career, or the university itself to utilize sport to generate revenue and interest and boosters and everything else. And for some places, sports are simply a way for young people to get an opportunity and a free education. And at Taylor, the thing about Silent Night that I learned when I went up to it was that for those students, sports is an avenue that facilitates for them to be able to show the rest of the world the significance and the importance of their faith, and to share that. And by singing Silent Night at the end of it, to letting the world see what it is that even though the game is taking place, that to them it is exactly that. And that there is a bigger purpose, a bigger desire, a bigger celebration in the month of December than just the 10th point of a basketball game. And it wasn't really until I went up there and saw it with my own 2 eyes and then witnessed the kids singing Silent Night at the end of the game that I truly felt that or understood it. And so it was, and I always appreciated that they, to me, made me aware of my own arrogant naivete towards all of it. And so I think everybody should go to that. And the same is true to a great extent, not from the faith-based origin of it, but the Monon Bell game, just the fact that it is two universities that are close to one another, that so much of the going to school there is about the good-natured rivalry with the other school right up the road. And for Marion and their women's basketball program, Marion, again, a school that is based in origin on faith. And for a women's basketball team that has two girls on it, two women on the team who lost their mother, and they already were having a phenomenal season. And then to come back 3 days later or whatever it was and play a game where one of those two women had close to a triple-double, and they ride this winning streak, and they found comfort in one another, and they found an inner peace within one another. And so to be able to do that and now find themselves where, gosh, they're potentially here, 8 hours away, 9 hours away from being national champions, NAIA national champions, is outstanding. And to Coach Anderson, Santana Anderson, and the rest of the Knights, best of luck to them without question. Lakers in action tomorrow night against the Pacers at the Fieldhouse. Eddie, what is your big agenda for this evening?
Not a whole lot, Jake.
Painting your face for opening day?
No. That's why I won't be here Thursday.
That's right. You're going down, right?
I'm going over to Cincinnati on Thursday. Yeah, first time. I've heard they do it different over there, and I've never been. Lifelong Reds fan, as you know. And so I was like, you know what? Why not? Let's go have some fun.
J&V has arrived. Crossover brought to you by the good guys at Love Heating and Air. He is wearing a T-shirt that I'm going to give him a trivia question. I'm guessing that he's going to know it. I did not know this. I did not know, John, when we were kids and the Smurfs really hit it big on Saturday morning cartoons, early 80s, basically, right?
Right.
You could buy the little rubber figurines. They were a big deal.
Yeah.
I did not know until I was on vacation in a particular city and they had a Smurf museum. And then I realized the Smurfs were everywhere, and I was at the place that was the origin of the Smurfs from like the 50s is when they started. Do you know where it was?
I don't know.
Brussels, Belgium.
Really? I thought it was something European.
I had no idea that the Smurfs were Belgian.
Because the whole thing looks very European. Do you remember the villain?
Gargamel?
Gargamel and the villain's cat?
Okay, hold on. I do know this.
Yes.
Is it Azrael?
Azrael.
Azrael, yeah.
Azrael.
How big were Smurfs? They were little. They lived in the grass, right?
Yeah, they did. Yeah. Well, I mean, I got sleep. The sleepy one right here is taking a nap under a toadstool, I think, right? So, yeah, about that tall.
How old was Papa Smurf, you think?
Probably a couple of different eras, I think, was Papa Smurf.
The Smurfs were, I mean, like, honestly, they had a run there in the 80s, man. They were
Did
huge.
you have a favorite Smurf? Hefty?
You know what? I basically any
See,
version
Hefty was
of
strong, but not fat.
I don't remember Hefty. I mean, I just remember having the.
You just remember Smurfette.
Well, of course, Smurfette, right? But I remember they had different like sport versions you could get in the little figurines, like one with a baseball bat, one with. So I don't remember their names per se, but I did love it.
Grouchy, they were.
It was kind of like the Seven Dwarfs, right?
Correct. Yeah, very, very much so. The Smurfs.
I feel like I'm at Kings Island. I was so mad, by the way, John. In the mid-'90s, I went to Kings Island, and we went through, remember the big television where you'd go through the floating boat?
Yeah.
And it was awesome because the air conditioning and that thing was awesome. And so you'd go through, and it was Hanna-Barbera Land and then also Smurf Village or whatever for years when you went through that television. And then I went back in the mid-'90s, and it was now like a haunted house or something. I'm like, what is this?
So I will say this. One of the worst parts about going to Kings Island in the summer would be going through one of those water rides.
Oh, if you did that with jeans on in the beginning, you were screwed for the day.
Well, and then there's the chafing was just
That's what
incredible
I mean.
all day, no matter what you were on.
Unbearable.
I put my money in a plastic bag and put it in my shoes because you couldn't have a wallet or anything. You're going to get all wet. So I put it in a little plastic bag and put it in my shoes.
Which water ride was the best? I mean, Whitewater Canyon was later in the years.
Yeah, and that got you the most wet right there. I mean, the log rides, they would get you a little bit wet.
The
mostly
big
your
log
feet.
flume was pretty awesome, right?
Yeah, they were. The log rides. But, and we were talking about that yesterday with what was your favorite roller coaster over there of all time?
I mean, the Beast is pretty hard to argue. I'll tell you what, the Screaming Demon, the Screaming Demon backwards was something. But I'll go with King Cobra. The stand-up.
I'm right there with you on the King Cobra.
King Cobra
Vortex
was
Vortex one.
Yeah,
too?
Vortex was later. The Vortex was basically just the metal answer to the Beast, right?
Yeah, and the Beast was wood.
Okay,
and the Beastie.
How about this? On which ride did Jan leave Mike's Prince?
The canoes.
Correct.
They were in the bottom of the canoes.
We were all over that little island.
Did you ever see anybody puke over there off a ride?
Never did see. I don't think so. Although it would have been the one that Alice got stuck on, the spinning barrels, right?
The only time I saw anybody puke, and shout out to him, it was Rex Bryant on our bus. We were going over there. This was my class, and he puked out the window of the bus in the parking lot as we got there because everybody on that bus was hammered.
Huckleberry Hound, row 9.
Yeah, I can still see it right now.
Everybody was hammered. I thought you were like in 5th grade.
Well, yeah, it wasn't. We had the best chaperone of all time.
Did he have some hawking?
We were passing around some of the nectar of the gods on that bus back there, and Rex, I love Rex, man. Still to this day, Rex is a good dude, but he puked right out the bus window.
You know the one ride that was underrated?
Yeah.
The Eagles.
Yeah.
You know the wooden Eagles thing that you were just flat, man, it was a great way to just cool off, get a breeze, dry off after you've been on the log flume.
How much is the slice of pizza over there now? Has got to be like $25.
No question.
Because it was like $5. I go, $5 for a slice of pizza?
And they had a pop-up Reds gift shop that was right outside the log flume. I always wanted a Joe Morgan jersey. All right, John's up next. What's on the big program?
What are we doing today? Tom Crean a little bit later on. JJ's going to join us. Rakestraw about the state finals. So we're locked with everything everybody needs to know, Jake, later on today, including a Pacer win last night.
All right, John's up next. We will be back with you at noon tomorrow, and I thank you for listening to Query & Company.